Hey guys, it's Ben here from the Strength Factory, and today I'm going to give you a complete bike check, including all of my settings for suspension, tyres and everything for my Vitus Sommet CRX. Before we get into all of my settings, let's just give this a little bit of context. This is a 2022 model in size large, and I actually got the 29er model sent to me by the guys at Vitus. However, I have switched it to mullet by putting a 27-inch rear wheel in the back and using the flip chip to put it in the high setting, and that gives me exactly the geometry that I want and need for a mullet setup. But what it also gives me is a slightly longer chainstay, because it's a 29er chainstay, than if I'd got the mullet setup direct from Vitus. Now then, how about me? I am just under 5'10", 177 centimeters, which actually randomly is about also 177 pounds for my 80 kilo weight plus riding kit. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea of how big I am when we're talking about suspension. Other things to consider are that I ride flat pedals, and I guess like a lot of riders, if I'm to be critical of my riding, is that I don't put enough weight through the front of the bike, through the front tyre, the front wheel and the suspension fork. Something I'm working on and getting better at, but that often means that I tend to end up riding my bikes just with a little more sag at the back, just drop my heels, sit into it. It seems to be where I always find a happy setup in my bikes, okay? It still feels balanced, but I do tend to run a little more sag at the back. Let's start with the components then. And one of the great things about Vitus bikes, and this one in particular, is for £4,000, it's literally race ready. You don't need to change anything. It's good wheels, good tyres, good brakes, good everything. Like literally, it is sorted. But as always, there's a few touches that I want to make. The first one is that I run Rimpact tyre inserts front and rear. I run the original in the front, which is a little lighter, and then the Pro version in the rear, which is a little bit heavier, but gives me a bit more protection. In the rear, really, it's just all about looking after that rear wheel. I've got a habit of banging rims, okay? And in the front, it really just lets me drop that tyre pressure and find a bit more grip. I really recommend you checking them out. The second thing then is I'm running these Carder pedals. Now, they are one of my sponsors, okay? But the reason I went to Carder is, number one, they're based just down the road. They're made in the UK. And I tested them independently a couple of years ago when I was reviewing stuff, and I just thought they were sick. They look great, they do exactly what you need to, they've got loads of grip, what's not to like? The next bit of componentry that I've added, and the only real change to the bike, is I fitted an OChain, okay? So you see here, we've got that bit of uptake before it engages to pedal the bike, and I'm going to do a video on the OChain on its own soon, because I am a massive believer and I really think that it's helped me to just ride faster, more confidently, as well as making the bike just feel smoother and be that little bit quieter. I absolutely think it's a great bit of kit, especially for 4-bar suspension bikes like the one I'm riding here. The only other thing that I've actually added to the bike is this VHS tape. It's a rubber tape, and it just replaces the stock chainstay protection, which is pretty good on these bikes, to be honest, but this just gives a bit more protection and crucially makes it a little bit quieter. A quiet bike is a fast bike. It's time now to actually talk about the settings on the bike and how I run it. And starting with the tyre pressure, the front tyre is an EXO Plus casing, so it's kind of medium tough, okay, not super tough, but you know, running a Rimpact has been absolutely fine all summer, to be fair. I'm running 21 PSI in that. Going into the winter when it gets really wet and I want more grip and it's slower, I'm definitely going to be dropping down to 19 or 20 PSI, depending on where I'm riding. On the rear, I've just been running 22 PSI for the last couple of months, and that seems to be a good balance where I've got enough protection for running a bit faster in the summer, but it's still not rolling off in the turns. And remember that that is supported by the Rimpact Pro insert in the back there. Let's talk now about suspension setup, and in particular, the complicated high-end Fox forks and shock with high and low speed compression damping, high and low speed rebound. You can then adjust the air pressure and also the number of tokens and volume spaces inside. This means there's a lot of variables, and all combined, you really can tailor it to give you exactly the ride characteristics that you want for your bike, your terrain, and your body. What I would also say though is there's a lot of scope to mess this up and make a really expensive fork feel like crap. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the suspension, just do me a favour, hit that subscribe button, and then you can be kept up to date with all my video content to help you be fitter, faster, and have more fun on your bike. The first thing I'll say is actually a little disappointing. So Fox really need to work on this, I think. So I'm hearing this again and again, is that out of the box, these forks were really sticky. They were really bound. There was a lot of resistance. So I took them to the guys at Sprung Suspension Workshop near me, World Cup level mechanic and suspension tuning there. And Jake sorted them out for me by resizing the bushings, okay? And what that does is that just removes loads of friction from the system, and it makes the fork really supple at the top, and it means you can get the true potential out of it. It turned it from a crap fork to probably the best fork I've ever ridden. Now then, as stock, it came with 2 volume spacers, but generally I prefer a more linear fork, and I don't need that massive ramp up at the end. So I've taken one of the spacers out, so I'm only running one. And to be honest, when it gets really wet and wintry around here and the speeds slow down, I'm going to take the second one out as well and go no spacers, which is often how I end up running a 170mm fork. In terms of pressures, I'm running 95 psi, again in the Fox Factory 38. Compression damping is pretty open. So from fully open, which is no damping, okay, so the fork's as free as can be, I'm only running 1 click of high speed and 2 clicks of low speed. And you can just about feel the difference, like click to click, if you really concentrate. And I just felt that while it's still dry at the moment, there's still a bit of energy coming up into my hands. That compression damping just protects your hands a little bit while still allowing the fork to move freely. Similarly, my rebound damping is set very fast, which does seem to be the trend at the moment. It seems to be how these forks are designed to be run. And when I talk to like the guys like Jake at Sprung, he's saying you've got to run it quick. And when I speak to my like pro racers as well, they run their forks really fast. Now, a pro racer doesn't always equate to me, but I've found a fast setup to be bang on the money. So from fully open, which is as fast as it can, again, I've got 2 clicks of low speed and 1 click of high speed rebound. Now let's look at the Fox Factory X2 shock, and again with plenty of adjustment, plenty of space to muck it up. I have not opened it up and changed the spacers. It's completely as stock, so I think it comes just one of the medium-sized spacers in there. Air pressure wise, I'm running 176 psi, which is actually about my weight in pounds, which is interesting. I've not heard that before. Maybe that's a coincidence, or maybe it's a good one for setup. Weight in pounds psi for this shock. Give it a try. Anyway, I'm running it like fairly open and fairly fast, so both the low speed compression and low speed rebound are both 5 clicks, okay? So it's a bit more damped than the front. I didn't feel like I needed it wide open, partly because the extra grip and feel that the OChain gives me at the rear. High speed rebound is basically as fast as it'll go. I've only got 1 click of high speed rebound. Then the high speed compression, I'm using 4 clicks of high speed compression damping. Again, I feel like I get all the free suspension movement I want because it's uninhibited by the chain, and so then I can use that damping that's built into the shock to just limit the energy coming up into the bike whilst still keeping it nice and free and nice and supple for maximum grip. There we go, that is my full setup, okay, including all the suspension. And even if you don't ride a Vitus, if you're not that lucky, then hopefully some of the stuff about the Fox suspension is useful to you. I'm also interested, do you ride one of these? How do you set it up? Have you got any suggestions? Anything you think that I've missed or that you'd like to know? Just drop it in the comments below, and I guarantee I'm going to get back to you and do my best to explain why I do things the way I do, and to maybe help you with your setup a bit as well. If you haven't already, then make sure you like and subscribe as well, and send this to a mate who needs to ride a Vitus.